First of all, there's been lots of debate about whether England should play with a back three or a back four. Do you think you proved on Sunday that England can play with a back four with you and John Stones as the centre backs?
I don't know. I think we played well together, yeah. I don't think we did anything that we haven't done for our clubs all season, so I don't think there was necessarily any surprises from John or myself. I think it was the first time we've played together in a back four, but obviously our whole back four was flooded with experience other than myself, so that certainly helped for me, but I enjoyed it.
What was it like having Kieran playing as left back next to you?
It was great, yeah. It was great. He's a really, I wouldn't say underrated, but he's not necessarily flamboyant, is he? But to play alongside and to be around, he's a really great guy and a really great defender. Like I said, he's got a lot of experience coming off the back of a really successful season as well. He certainly helped me, as well as everybody else who played did. But yeah, I love playing with him.
There's obviously lots of hype surrounding the game against Scotland. What kind of game do you think it will be at Wembley? And does it mean more to the players because it is Scotland, or is it just another game as far as you're all concerned?
We're aware of obviously the history of the game and the rivalry that it has around it, but at the end of the day, our first aim is to qualify from the group, and Scotland are the next team that we play. So it's going to be a very difficult game, of course, but at the same time, it is the next step in our progression in this tournament, and that's what we're thinking about at the moment.
And do you think their approach will be affected by the fact that they lost yesterday to the Czech Republic? Does it mean this is a game that they're going to have to win?
Maybe. I think that's a question for them to ponder. But at the same time, I think both teams are going to go into it knowing what's at stake, and knowing that ultimately we both want to win the game. They'll be preparing to try and beat England as England will be preparing to try and beat Scotland. So I think it'll be a really good game.
I just want to ask you about what happened to Christian Eriksen on Saturday. Obviously, a lot of people saw what happened. A lot of people were affected by it. As a player, how do you feel about what happened? And more generally, do you think enough is being done to monitor players and also to look after your health?
Yeah, well, first things first, obviously it's a huge relief that he's okay. The scenes that we've seen were hugely distressing for everybody, not just for players, but for anybody who was watching or who's seen it. So thankfully he's okay, as it seems. In terms of the monitoring of players and the well-being of players, I mean, we probably couldn't be in a safer place when we're on the pitch in terms of how much treatment is readily accessible. And you've seen just how quickly he was treated. Had that been somewhere else, maybe we wouldn't, maybe people wouldn't be so fortunate. So I think on the pitch, yes, we're very fortunate to have kind of specialist care around the pitch. And off the pitch, there are a lot of tests that are done. There's a lot of technology. There's a lot of scans that we go through to try and make sure that medics know as much about our body as possible. Something like what we seen the other day was, like I said, hugely distressing. And for players, it probably puts into perspective what is important and what isn't sometimes, as I'm sure everybody went through a little bit of reflection. But in terms of the monitoring of players and our general well-being, I think we're looked after. I think the fixtures people are talking about is a whole new subject. But in terms of the well-being, I think we are, yeah.
Just a final one from me. I think you were the first Aston Villa player to play at a major tournament for England since Gareth Southgate. What does that tell us about what is happening at Villa now, and how long do you think it will be before you're lining up next to Jack Grealish in an England shirt?
I don't know. To both of them questions, I mean, the first one, Aston Villa. Yeah, we are in a good time at the moment. We're enjoying some success and some stability on the pitch after a few up and down years. But I wasn't aware of that fact about me being the most recent player to play for England at a major championship since the manager, but that's nice. And in terms of Jack, I don't know. I knew it wouldn't be long before I was asked about him. And everybody in this room and who watches football knows his qualities. So I need to try and make sure I'm on the pitch before I start worrying about Jack. But I'm sure it won't be long.
Thanks, Carve. We'll now take one on Zoom from James Savundra from TalkSport.
Tyrone, that victory on Sunday was the first time that England have won the opening match of the Euros. What has that win done for the feeling amongst the squad?
The feeling amongst the squad is I wouldn't say exactly the same, because we've now won our first game of this tournament, and that was our first aim. So after the game, there was a little bit of relief. Of course, that game was out of the way. We now settle into the tournament. But in terms of around the camp, I think anybody that you speak to who sees it or is around the group will say that the mood is relatively stable at all times. I think for longevity, it's important to not get too high after wins or beat yourself up too much after losses. So yeah, it was the first game and it was a really important win, but it hasn't changed the camp too much.
Thanks, James. Next we'll go in the room to Ollie Foster from BBC.
Hi there, Tyrone. Getting back to the sort of Villa connection and the Scotland game, any communication with John McGinn?
Yeah, he texted me the other day just saying well done, and I wished him all the best for their game, but not since that, no.
For the last couple of weeks in camp, I mean, your life story, your career path, I mean, there's a film script good to go there already, but the last 2 weeks, the last 48 hours, getting the nod, can you explain what that actually meant to you at the time?
Good question. Yeah, the journey, obviously, we've spoke about a lot and has been well documented, but the last few days, I guess, is something that you can never prepare for. Being told that I was going to start and putting myself in the position where I'd had a good season and was called up, and then was in fighting for a place if Harry wasn't fit, was an exciting time. But then to be told that I was starting was exciting and daunting at the same time. I mean, I didn't get much sleep before the game. I didn't eat too much before the game, which was a mixture of excitement and nerves. But they're things that you have to go through to gain the experience that people quite often talk about. So I loved every minute of it. I was grateful and honoured to be chosen to start for England, as I am in any game. But that didn't last. That didn't last for too long after the game, because now our focus turns to what is another huge game.
I mean, you're all professionals and you do that on a weekly, if not more, a basis in the Premier League. But how do you sort of push that reset button? I mean, Gareth talked about that relieves the tension getting the result against Croatia, but how do you push the reset button and get back to, yes, you're the man in possession, but thinking, right, I've got to stay in possession. You get that old competitive sort of spirit going again in training, trying to get back on that team sheet?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where it starts. It starts in training. It starts by having a really good group, like what we've got here. It starts by everybody pushing each other. There really is no time to let your standards drop or be reflective of what was a good weekend for us, because like you said, we do it at our clubs on a weekly basis, and we're all trying to fill 11 shirts, but there's 26 people here all trying to do the same thing. So that is healthy, and I think the squad that we've got here is we're only as good, we're only as strong as the squad and the people that aren't playing. So that's where it starts in training.
You mentioned the 26. We've got this unavoidable situation that you've got players having to drop out on match days because of only 23 allowed. And how healthy is that? You mentioned the word healthy or unhealthy, and how did you rally around Jadon Sancho and Ben Chilwell?
Well, I think the manager touched on how professional they were, and I don't think for me to talk about how they felt being left out of the squad, because ultimately they would have been disappointed. If you were a player, of course you would have been disappointed. But it's a long old tournament, isn't it? And like I just touched on there, we will only be successful if the whole squad is right at it. So those guys there would have been through situations before where maybe they were left out, or they were then suddenly called upon after being left out. So like I said, the professionalism around the squad and through the squad is so impressive, and I don't think we would have got into the position to be in the squad for the Euros if it wasn't.
Finally, one more for me. I mean, I presume you will watch the matches as a group, the other matches. I mean, some big beasts come into play tonight, Group F, and not looking too far ahead, but if things go well for England, it could be a France, a Germany, or a Portugal in the last 16. But so do you watch these matches this evening with a bit of added interest?
Absolutely. First of all, I watch them as a fan. I mean, everybody up and down the country loves when major tournaments are on, or when there's a lot of football in a congested period of time. It's slightly different being involved as a player. Very different, actually. But at the same time, we get to watch a lot of football, and I would have watched it if I wasn't here anyway.
Thanks, Ollie. Now back on Zoom with Ashley Priest from Birmingham Live.
Afternoon, Tyrone. You okay?
Hi, mate. I'm good, thanks. Are you?
Yeah, I'm well, mate. I watched you closely after the final was still at Wembley. I seen you puff out your cheeks as if you just overcome a real acid test. Obviously, question marks about in the build-up. Obviously, your big tournament now, but you passed that with flying colours. I mean, just explain the journey the last 12 months, your improvements for Villa as well. I've been watching you every week, so it's no surprise to me. But have you doing anything differently? What do you put your improvement down to?
I think just consistency, and the consistency gives you a lot of confidence to know that going into games like we faced the other day, the first game of a major tournament, means that when I arrived at the stadium, there was nothing really on the pitch that was going to happen or that I was going to face that I hadn't seen before in some shape or form by playing in the Premier League and playing against top quality strikers. It was everything else that was important to deal with on the day, and in the lead up to the game, making sure that the nerves or the excitement didn't beat me before the game started, and I wasn't kind of knackered before we kicked the ball. And obviously it was very hot, but yeah, at the end of the game there was absolutely a lot of relief. Not necessarily for myself, but first and foremost, we were holding on to a 1-0 win, which was so important for the team.
Thanks, Ashley. Now back in the room with Carrie Brown from beIN Sports.
Tyrone, after that performance, some commentators were saying that even if Harry Maguire was fit, he wouldn't necessarily be able to take your spot. What was that like to hear?
It's a little bit bizarre, bearing in mind how much credit in the bank Harry's got and what a fantastic defender he is. But at the same time, there is absolutely competition for places, and I think he's somebody that I look up to in terms of a centre-back, and somebody that is so consistent with a lot of pressure on his shoulders, being captain of Man United and being one of the main players for England. He's a person that I take a lot of inspiration from. So to be mentioned in the same breath as him is a compliment in itself.
wonder if you could give your assessment on Kieran Tierney, quite relatively new into the Premier League, beset by injuries, but considered really Scotland's biggest attacking threat for his ability both to drive the play forward and get forward. How do you assess him as a player, and how big a threat could he be if he's fit for this encounter?
Yeah, I think he's shown every week how good of a player he is and how much of an attacking threat he is. And quite often as a left wing back or a left centre back, whichever he plays in, there are positions in modern football that are so important in attack and defence that if he plays, absolutely he'll be another player that we'll have to be conscious of. But Scotland, I think, have got quality, Premier League quality and international quality running through their team. So he will be one of a long list of players we'll have to be mindful of.
He had a memorable night against Liverpool at Villa Park, but Andy Robertson's quite the driver in that team, isn't he?
He is, yeah. And yeah, the Aston Villa Liverpool game was certainly a memorable one. But there's always something different about when players play for their national team, the pride and emotions that come with it as well. So he was obviously captain the other day, and he's also a fantastic leader. I mean, I spoke to John McGinn about him and what he's like as a person, and yeah, he's, like I said, another of a long list of quality players that Scotland have.
Just want to go back to John Stones and Jordan Pickford having a little conversation about John wanting the ball at his feet a little bit more, but the long passes were quite useful, I think, in that heat. What did you make it all? And Gareth saying you can't be too much of a football snob. Is it all about picking the moment for the occasion?
Yeah, and there's no real right or wrong, because if you go long and pick up the second ball and we go and start an attack that way, everybody's saying how great it is that you're mixing up your game. But if you go long maybe too often and keep surrendering possession to top quality players, then ultimately we'll spend a lot of time not having the ball and they will punish us. But there's Christ, there would have been a lot of conversations on the pitch that you probably didn't hear, and disagreements that happen in the game. But at the same time, it's two players that both want to win, and both are having to find solutions on the pitch and kind of solve problems on the pitch as to what is best for that moment in time. And credit to them, I think we found a positive balance.
And I've got to ask you, Wembley just felt different yesterday. You've played there a lot. What's it like for your first big tournament, walking out there? The fans, as you walked out, just even came out for the warm-up was so loud, but how special was it?
Yeah, it was amazing. You always dream about playing for England at Wembley, and to do it in a major tournament with your friends and family and the fans there was really special. So it was a moment that will last long in my memory. Certainly one of the best days of my football career. But to share it, like I said, with fans, friends, family as well, was even more special.
Thanks, Kerry. Now we'll go back online to Alistair Lamont from BBC Scotland.
Hi, Tyrone.
Hi.
I just wanted to chat again about Kieran Tierney. I mean, his importance to Scotland was underlined almost in his absence yesterday. Would you, I mean, Steve Clarke says he's got a chance of playing against England. Would England be happier to face a Scotland side that didn't have Kieran Tierney in it?
I mean, there's pros and cons to everything, isn't there? If we play and we win the game, people will be saying it was because Kieran Tierney didn't play. But he's a fantastic player, and certainly for us, whether he plays or whether he doesn't, we will prepare for both eventualities. But I don't want to be disrespectful to whoever may play in his position by saying it would weaken them if he didn't play. But certainly he's a very, very good player.
Thanks, Alistair. Okay, we've got time for two more in this section. We'll go back to Carve from Sky.
Tyrone, the Home Secretary was asked today about the England players taking a knee, and she accused you of playing at gesture politics. And she also refused to condemn the England fans who booed the players taking the knee. There were also quite a few protests outside the stadium while you were taking the knee on Sunday. I just wondered what you would have to say to the Home Secretary and also to the supporters who continue to boo the players.
To the Home Secretary, I don't really have a direct message. I mean, we spoke, and she invited me onto a Zoom call once, where she seems so interested and engrossed in players' kind of point of view and what we could do more to kind of tackle these sort of issues. But at the same time, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and the Home Secretary is one of many people that oppose us taking the knee or refuse to defend it. So we have our own set of beliefs and what we think we can do to help, and will be players that can be influential and can kind of stand up for what we believe in. And understandably, when you have such strong beliefs, there will be opposition to that. So we spoke about it a lot. We spoke about trying to educate or trying to inform the minority who refuse to acknowledge why we're taking the knee and want to boo it. But at the same time, in Wembley, there was a hugely positive reaction to us taking the knee as well. And I don't think that should be overshadowed by the minority that refuse to accept what the reasons are or don't agree with them.
Thanks, Carvane. We'll finish in this section with one online from Jerry Cox of Haters.
Hi, Tyrone. You well?
I'm very well, thanks. Are you?
Yeah, good. Just looking back at your sort of career path to the top, it's a bit unusual, a bit of rejection and obviously coming through the levels. And that's, quite a few of the other players have had that same sort of pathway right up to, Harry Kane. Do you think that gives you a good grounding? And does that help you bond together as a group? You seem like a really sort of well-grounded, no airs and graces group of players. Do you think that's a good thing that you've got fairly humble backgrounds, a lot of you?
Yeah, I think that definitely helps. I think everybody in the squad is very respectful of each other, and maybe there would have been a time where it would have been a little bit harder to integrate into the squad if you hadn't have come through a big academy, or if you hadn't have come through academy football and kind of made your debut really young and took the traditional route. But I think the great thing about this squad, like you said, is there are so many success stories that come from so many different avenues and so many different pathways, that they're certainly good conversation starters and they're certainly good icebreakers, talking about things like that, or talking about loans that different people may have had and how they had to kickstart their career again by taking a slightly different route. So yeah, I think it definitely helps.
Thanks, Jerry. Okay, that concludes the live section of today's media conference. We'll now move on to a short section embargoed until 10:30 p.m. this evening, and we'll start online with Ian Ladyman of the Daily Mail.
Hi, Tyrone. A couple of very straightforward questions. The first one is your comments about Harry Maguire were clearly very genuine, incredibly respectful. It's clear the fondness and admiration you have for him. If and when he regains full fitness, is it a matter of course that he resumes his partnership with John Stones?
Very good question. I mean, I don't think I'm qualified enough to answer that because I don't pick the team. All I can do is, and I know it sounds extremely boring, all I can do is try and train well and play well if I am called upon, to try and throw my hat in the ring for a starting position whenever he is fit. But like I said, I would hate to have to answer that question because I would hate to have the selection issues that the manager has.
Fair enough. Very diplomatic. The second question is about the Scotland game. Watching it yesterday, they played some quite direct football on occasion. Nothing wrong with that. If they were to play that way on Friday at Wembley, I'd imagine yourself, 6'5", you've played plenty of Championship football before you started to play in the Premier League. I would imagine you would quite fancy that kind of challenge, would you?
Yeah, I mean, like I briefly touched on earlier, there's not many things as players that are new to you when you go onto the pitch. So whether that be playing styles or things that certain players do, so we will be well prepared for however they play. But like I said, there's more than one way to skin a cat, isn't there? They can come and they can play good football. They've got really good technicians in their team. They can go long if required. So if anything, that makes them more difficult to predict what they're going to do.
Thanks, Ian. And take one in the room from Simon Peach of Press Association. That's the mic.
Hi, Tyrone.
Hi.
Just going back to the long route to the top, I saw Eastleigh Football Club post that 10 years ago you were there, and I looked into it, and you were playing the Falkland Islands, was it, in a friendly? Was that a trial?
Yeah, it was a bit cheeky of them to post a picture of me in there, because they turned me down as well. Yeah, I went on trial down there for, I think it was a few days, or if it was a few days spaced over a couple of weeks. And yeah, we played one game, but there was a lot of people down there trialing at the same time. And yeah, they didn't offer me a contract. But at the same time, that was for their first team, so I probably wasn't quite developed enough at the time. I think I was 17 or 18. So going straight into their team probably wouldn't have suited me anyway. But yeah, I see that they posted a picture of me in their kit.
Does it feel a bit surreal that 10 years ago you were helping the Falkland Islands tooled up for the Island Games, and now you're ready to face Scotland in a huge European Championship game?
Yeah, surreal is probably a good word, but then at the same time, it also feels very, very real. I was only speaking to my friend last night, I think, saying that it's almost weird that it feels normal. Not that I take it for granted, but I've been a professional footballer for a long time now, and sometimes when events or occasions like playing at Wembley in the opening game of a major tournament come around, it's a nice time to have a reflection on what is happening and what is going on, and it's been a great journey up until now, but I'm also looking to make it an even better one as well.
Thanks, Simon. Back online with David Friel from the Scottish Sun.
Hi, Tyrone, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, mate.
Good. You've mentioned John McGinn a few times. Tyrone, can you sum him up as a character, personality and a player? And also, I was watching something earlier where you said that John sits in the Scottish hotel watching the England Inside Training YouTube videos. So do you think he'll be spying on you this week?
Absolutely. I don't think there'd be a video that England put out that John wouldn't have watched. I mean, he watches everybody. He watches every country, I think. His knowledge and his interest in football is incredible. But he's a fantastic guy, and someone that I'm very close to at Aston Villa. He's a real character, a bit of a joker, a bit moody at times, but he's a fantastic player as well. I mean, his rise to where he is now and being a huge part of the Scotland squad and Aston Villa squad is testament to him and his work rate and professionalism as well. And I'm sure he'll be really enjoying the camp at the moment and being a part of a major tournament for Scotland, because I know how much it means to him. He doesn't stop talking about Scotland at Aston Villa, so I'd like to think he's talking about Aston Villa at Scotland at the moment as well.
Thanks, David. Next to Jacob Steinberg of The Guardian.
Hi, Tyrone. There's a lot of emotion and history behind this game. How important is it for you as a team to ignore that? Because you will go into it as heavy favourites on Friday. So how important is it for you guys to not allow it to become too heated on Friday night?
Yeah, I think a little bit like my preparation for the Croatia game, trying to ignore something usually makes me want to think about it more. If I walked into this press conference and someone said I couldn't look over in that corner, I'd be really interested to know what was over there. So I think it's more about embracing it, embracing the fixture, understanding the importance of what it means to the fans, but not letting that cloud any judgment or emotion that we may have or maybe feeling going into the game, because it is a big occasion for the fans and also for the players that are involved on both sides. But at the same time, we're there to win a game, and the best way for us to win the game is to stay composed and always be in control of our thoughts and our actions.
Okay, we're going to disappoint quite a few raised hands here. We've got time for two more, starting with Jack Rosser of The Standard.
Hi, Tyrone. There was a couple of questions asked of Harry Kane after the opening game and sort of the role he was playing and whether that dropping deep role that he plays at Tottenham is so effective for England. I just wondered what, as a squad, do you make of that sort of those questions around the captain?
Really irrelevant, I think, because I honestly, I think he's one of the best players in the world. I think so highly of him. And I also played against him second to last game of the season against Tottenham. And we tell you, when he does drop in, he's not a player that you can just let drop in, because if he turns and faces you up, he can also pick out pretty much any pass he wants to. So when he does drop in, it really isn't easy for a centre-half to go with, because you feel like you're going into a situation or an area of the pitch that you don't really want to go into. And it then opens spaces behind him and in behind where we got in quite a few times on Sunday as well. So I can't speak highly enough of him as a player and as a captain. So the question marks around him, real background noise.
Okay, thanks, Jack. And we'll finish with Craig Swan from the Daily Record.
Hi, Tyrone. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Are you?
Good. Tyrone, you've touched on a number of the Scotland squad during the conversation today. One you haven't is your old teammate at Bournemouth, Ryan Fraser. I think you used to call him the wee man. if that's right, can you give us a reflection on your relationship with him and what sort of player you think he is?
Again, I think he's a really top player, and he's been unfortunate with niggly injuries over the latter stages of his Bournemouth career and of last season. But when he is fit and when he is sharp and when he is on it, he's a real problem for anybody. You've seen in that season with him and Callum Wilson and the relationship that they had and the quality that he had with assists and goals for Bournemouth. That, again, and I know I keep talking about it, but that's a long list of Premier League international standard players that they've got, and he can hurt you on any given day. I'm sure he'll be loving being away with Scotland as well. Very proud of where he comes from. I'm very proud of the route that he took to the top as well. So again, I think top player and a really good guy as well.